Thanks,
Appreciate
Don.
you coming through.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Stefan, love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, if you would like.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Stefan Wolff. I'm the Vice President of Mission Critical Operations for Loenbro. We're a multi-service line specialty contractor, so we do mechanical, electrical, structural, steel, and a lot of industrial applications. So oil and gas, data centers, critical electrical substations, water treatment facilities, and really happy to be here at the Prefab conference talking to you and see what's going on in the industry.
Awesome. Aligns so well. Just the synergy too between the companies. It's awesome to have you in here.
Yeah.
We'll start off with a couple, I'll just kind of float through a couple questions for you, and then we can just kind of elaborate and let it go from there. What do you think the biggest win that prefabrication allows your company as you guys build?
That's a great question. I think for me and for the way that we run our business, it gives us control
Sure.
of the process.
Yep.
Because you have a set amount of time on a project, be it 8 weeks, 8 months, 8 years, to execute on the plan from when you mobilize to the site. But what if you can start that whole process weeks or months before, because you have control over that process? You can pull some of those hours and de-risk the projects on the front end by pulling these things into an off-site facility and sending it ready to go. You might be spending the same hours, but you're spending them differently.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a huge win, not only for the contractors and for the EOR community, but for the client at the end of the day, because your end date isn't moving, but when you start it, actually, you get some more flexibility on the front end with that too, which I think is the win for our clients when we're talking about speed.
Yeah, and you hit on de-risk, right? And I think with de-risking, right, and that's across the whole project ecosystem, there's more predictability in it.
Right.
And I would imagine that we see it, I would imagine the effects that has for you as you're building and delivering.
Yeah, because as you've been on projects where there's no space to do anything, everyone's on top of one another.
Yeah.
So being able to pull and work in a safer environment, work under your conditions, and then bring a finished product into the space that requires less time, less hours on the job site, less opportunities for things to not go perfectly. I mean, those are the things that ultimately matter to our clients at the end of the day, because the job is going to they need the job when they need it. It's how you get there. It's how we, as their partners, their channel partners, we can provide those solutions. And I think there's a lot of culturalizing and educating some of these clients to help them see that vision earlier and get the rest of their team on board.
Yeah, agreed. When choosing a prefabrication partner, what matters most in that process?
Obviously, it goes without saying that their sophistication and their ability to perform this work, like I think a track record is very important. I also think that having people on your channel partners team that have exposure previously to the A&E side of the business, maybe coming from the client to understand exactly what the client is looking for, because to just look at it from one seat at the table, be it the contractor or the VDC partner, I think that is important, but having a multifaceted view on what the finished product is and how to get there, I think really is a differentiating factor. So having deep teams with deep experiential knowledge, I think is a big delineation or determining factors to choosing a winning team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you there. With the parity that is not uncovered sometimes, being able to have more transparency with the owner through the trade partners, critical into executing well.
Well, even outside of the prefab world, like you're choosing a team. Yeah, everyone has a nice coloring and branding, and the company has nice the storylines. But if that team is not up to the challenge, it doesn't matter how many good jobs that company did.
Yeah.
That team is not going to deliver for you. So that's team and people, and in the world that we're living right now, with the industry being where it is, we're all so resource strained. Time, people, all these other factors are coming, material, and we are hopefully coming out of that here soon enough.
Right.
The things you can control for are very little, and the people are probably the biggest factor to your success. So
couldn't agree more. It is a people thing. What types of projects do you usually use prefabrication for, or is it more of a multifaceted approach to markets?
I love being able to go into a project and open up a set of plans. Hopefully before we get to IFC, but we'll get to that. That's a different conversation. And say, wow, we're going to be doing the same exact process more than once. where's the cost benefit analysis into trying to pull some of this out of the course of construction timeline and pulling it into a different parallel track. So, in the world of, skidding up a data center, if I'm going to put in 96 hacks, well, can I do this 96 times better offsite, or should I do this on site? If I'm going to be building X amount of e-houses, okay, but if I'm going to be doing one installation of one thing, maybe there's not a lot of benefit to doing that.
Sure.
Obviously, your mileage may vary on that. But definitely when you look at these repeatable systems that are scalable, not just on one project, because you and I both know we have clients that come back to us to address national concerns.
Yeah.
And they're standardizing these designs across all of their markets. So buildings that are, hurricane, earthquake, volcano, Martian invasion, all the things, right? But it's one design, so you can do it once very well and scalable, and then you get that benefit over the lifetime. So the upfront investment, I use that word intentionally, investment the client makes at the end of the day should pay dividends at the end, because you get the economies of scale through the life cycle of that design.
Yeah. Investment is a key word there.
Right, because this is an investment. What we're doing here is not the quote unquote easy way to do it. It takes a lot more planning, and you're de-risking from even before you have a full set of IFCs or permits.
Absolutely. That investment comes with a responsibility.
Right.
We look at that responsibility and the education that is required to get owners, to get folks up to speed, up to par, to understand why that investment is so important. It's critical.
And there's a lot of people that not here, because this is a special place at Advancing Prefab, but there's a lot of bad actors that are out there that will say whatever the client wants to hear in that moment, because that's the narrative they're operating under of conventional wisdom. Some of the things we're talking about, even though they make sense when you've educated someone, they feel unconventional. And that's a hard thing, especially, as a VDC partner, maybe you have a different avenue of coming into the conversation. But by the time I get a set of drawings that's ready to go, the window is so small that it's almost like a fire sale to try to get the thing done. And, sometimes it's easier just to go and, check the trodden path. So education is a big part of it, and developing those relationships, back to the people thing, the relationships over sometimes years, to get to the point where the client has the trust in you to be able to deliver on this product or this new program. That's something, and choosing the partners that come along with you is key. And we do the same thing, where we're selective as to what new unconventional opportunities we're going to take, because it's our reputation also.
Absolutely. How has prefabrication changed your approach to risk management? Going back to that, again, the risk we were talking, de-risking. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, but is there anything in there that...
Wow. I spent a lot of my time just thinking about safety, risk management, and schedule. And I think all of those things are part of the problem statement and the solution that a prefab program provides. That, especially when you talk in that language with clients that are running, multinational, multi-billion-dollar program portfolios, those are things that matter to the people, to the real decision makers. Yeah. So when you talk in that language, you speak with the people that matter with those points, they see that picture, and now it's less a matter of why and now how. And that's I think as an industry, we're talking about, because a lot of times, I think a lot of people would agree that construction generally is lagging, could be a decade or more, depending on what technology or what application or solution we're talking about here. I think that we're actually getting to the point now where through conferences and venues like this, that we're going to start trying to close that gap and maybe actually jumping it ahead, because of just the outsized investment that's happening right now in the space on advanced manufacturing and all of this this critical infrastructure we're putting in. So there's a real opportunity here for us to make prefab actually the core of the products, and then everything else that comes and happens at the site itself is influenced by and supporting that operation.
Yeah, it's a complete shift. It really is a paradigm shift in the way that prefabrication was a nice to have, where now it's becoming a need to have. Right. And now we're also seeing that shift in projects. It was about money, right? And then time, that now we're seeing this complete 180 where it's about time, necessarily so much money.
Right.
So that schedule compression, being able to get this coordinated and delivered, extremely important. Are you seeing those benefits on your jobs? All the ancillary parts that make prefab better? Are you starting to see more of that?
Well, so I'm old school construction. So one of the superintendents that I came up under, he gave me the three-legged stool of construction. It's quality, it's time,
Yep.
and it's money,
Yep.
right? And you can choose one. You're lucky to get two. I really do believe that if prefab is done correctly, you can have them all.
Sure.
On the right program with the right partners, you can get the quality locked in before it shows up on site. You can get your time back. And if you do it at scale, you can actually do it more efficiently from a dollar standpoint.
Couldn't agree more.
There is that opportunity, but again, back to the planning phase and back to the de-risking phase. Like, what is the client's priority concern? Is it putting out the fire that's right in front of them, or is it figuring out why the fires keep coming up?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the differentiator. And savvy clients will see that, and savvy clients will want to have those conversations if their programs will allow them to.
Right. And that's where the value is in the programmatic approach.
Right. So you're having the conversations, I think, with the clients, even if you're midstream on our product, well, we can solve for this one piece of it. But what if we zoom out and say, what if we took this from a whole different perspective at the start? And here's an example, and here's a program that we can do, and we can stack all these things at once. And here's your new program, actually. And here's your partners to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's the conversations that we all want to be having with our end users, because at the end of the day, we're all here because we want to do a good job. No one wants to show up to work and do a bad job,
right?
Or feel pressure to deliver on something that feels insurmountable. Let's get out ahead of it and plan our days and we'll plan our work and work our plans.
Yeah, very, very intelligent perspective. Appreciate you sharing that. Which prefab trend do you think will move the industry forward in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? Is there a trend that you're seeing?
So one thing that I'm seeing from the contractor perspective is that there's a silver wave of really bona fide builders that are retiring out. And we haven't done a great job as a nation, maybe as a global society, in bringing up and inspiring the next generation of builders to come in and learn and share and do that knowledge share. That really, construction in a lot of ways is that. Like, it's a knowledge share that you'd have to see to have to have done it. So we're losing a lot of the knowledge base, and we're at the same time, we're having a crunch for skilled labor.
Yes.
So something's going to give. So again, I'm always thinking about de-risking things. Like, how do we de-risk this thing? Is if we can pull that risk into a controlled environment and build it out there, and then we ship it out. And I think the technology is going to really help us is being able to bring the VDC, the virtual and augmented reality technologies that are being built out by VDC professionals that are inputted into whatever VR goggle, whatever the technology of the day that we use. And then we take the questioning out of it, because some people just can't take 2D and see it in their head in 3D.
Correct.
Let's show them.
Correct.
And then that way you may be really good at doing the specific task. You don't have that, you missed that training from that silver surfer that's now riding off into their retirement. Love them and wish you weren't leaving. So let's help them and let's bring that knowledge base. Because on the flip side, there are some people that are amazing in BIM and in the three-dimensional world virtually that aren't going to be able to translate that into actually putting up the work. This is the gap. This is the conduit that's going to help us bridge that. And I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see that really coming to fruition and really start running at full speed.
Yeah, agree with you there. Yeah, that transition from the deep constructability knowledge and then the inside the model knowledge, right? Marry those two together is really a silver bullet that we're trying to achieve, I believe. And I love the way that you articulated that. What's one piece of advice that you would give subcontractors that are beginning to enter into prefabrication?
First, come to Advancing Pre-Construction 2027. It's a great show. I think the second thing is to be curious and build relationships with the people that don't sit on your side of the table. Go and spend time with the architects, spend time with engineers. It's not just a contractual or transactional relationship that we're building here. The industry is growing, and all of these industries that can benefit from this are going at such a fast rate, really breakneck speeds, that you need to be able to lean on your community to do this right. And pick up the phone and follow up that friend that you did a job with 2 years ago and say, hey, I need some help on this thing. Can you help me? Asking for help, I think, is the biggest thing. And being able to be the dumb person in the room sometimes, I think, is key. Because if you can't, this is space you can't fake it till you make it. There are people that you can lean on that can help you get this thing done.
Yeah, for sure.
And those are the relationships that are going to carry you through when it gets hard, because we don't all know everything. And if you ever find someone that does, I mean, you know it, but like run away from that person. Because they're going to get
Too
you in
good to be
trouble.
true.
Yeah, it normally is, right? So we're, and we're all in this together. I think that the people that are really here doing incredible things, they get that. And they're looking for partners to help them get through the journey. Right?
Yeah, agreed. It's breaking through that siloed approach that we've so long done
Right.
as a community. And now there's so much transparency, right, between what can be done inside the mall. It's not what's out in the site. The site is actually digital.
Right.
So that getting folks to understand what can be done. And I couldn't agree with you more in that asking for help, like there is nothing wrong there.
Right.
That's only going to transform how we approach this. Great point.
And a little bit of vulnerability too. Like it's asking for help and saying, I'm at my limit and I know, but I want to do more. I want to be more. So let's do that together.
Yeah.
Clients that get it and clients that see the bigger picture are going to support you in that. And they're going to be there on the journey. They're going to help you take it to the next level. So if you're starting in there's no better time than now to start, right? So jump in and we're going to have a good time.
Right on. So let's go through some quick questions.
Oh, geez.
Some simple ones.
All right.
How long have you been working in construction?
Just over a decade, actually. Yeah.
Excellent. How's it been?
I've seen a lot of changes. Yeah, it was like I said before, there's like the silver wave, and I got a lot of benefit of learning from under a lot of very smart people that have seen a lot of different things and kind of passing the torch on, and then saw the rise of this thing called digital twin and on what VDC means, and BIM was like a new slick thing that was coming out, and and it didn't get, I think, the credence that it probably deserved at the beginning, probably because we didn't know what to do with it.
Yes.
And seeing that evolution, and then talking about how you're doing more with less. Well, this is where you can do more with more.
Absolutely.
And that's really exciting. So that's been a really cool thing to see as the decade has turned to do more with more.
Yeah. I think you said this earlier. What do you do at your company outside of the title?
Yeah, title can say a lot, right? It can hide a lot. So we build critical infrastructure of all stripes. And my job really, like I said earlier, is de-risking what the project is and trying to bring people's best work every day to the table. So that means looking at the schedule and seeing how we can optimize the schedule. That means pursuing opportunities that make sense, not only for us or for the client, because sometimes I'm not the best fit for a client. I'll be the first to say it, because I want the project to succeed first.
Sure.
Because if it doesn't succeed and I'm the reason, that's not a good place for anyone to be.
Yeah.
And making those decisions, then, like I said before, like we have a shortage of qualified, competent people in the industry. So helping bring up the next generation is really a big part of the joy that I get out of my work.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And bringing those people along and giving them the pathway to success. They have to walk the path that they want it, but building it out for them and building the standard operating procedures, the training, development opportunities, and really putting them on the line, right?
Yeah.
And letting them really do what they can do best is an exciting part of what I get to do every day.
That's awesome. That's refreshing, actually, to hear that.
It is fun.
It is.
Yeah.
So what drives you, Stefan? What drives you most about prefab? Is there something about it outside of what we'll discuss that?
I think that we've conventionally looked at the construction life cycle as a linear process. And I think that there's a lot that we can do as an industry when we start looking at them as parallel processes. So like I was mentioning earlier, if this is a scalable solution that you can use across projects, well, how scalable is it?
Yeah.
And how much can we optimize an assembly line, project pipeline, a specific project itself? Because we're in a world that, time matters, and I think it's always been the case, but I think we're just like amplifying, and it's been so overly overexposed on that time issue.
Sure.
That the end date's never going to change, and the client in a lot of ways doesn't care if you get it done in 5 minutes or 5 days, as long as it's done when they need it done, right?
Yep.
So
very true.
So what we do afford them is that if we standardize and really chunked out a lot of the project into these modules, skids, whatever language you want to put there, and we kind of give the client back some flexibility and when they have to lock a certain piece of the pie in, be it their client, be it their AI stack or load application,
Sure.
be
Yeah.
it their major equipment orders, and we give them flexibility in the front end for locking that in, they will choose you over and over and over again for the flexibility that it gives them on the tail. So the end they actually never has to move, but when you start can become way in. So even though the full cycle of the project actually don't know when it starts because it's been starting for 5 years,
Right.
but this project boots in the ground can start so much closer because you sucked out all of the noise and just turned that job site into signal. And that's really exciting to me. And that keeps me going and driving this thing. And like you said before, educating clients, educating the community. And so what we're actually doing here, why it matters. Getting back down to that why.
Yeah. It's a shift. As we said before, it's a major shift, and being able to shift more earlier creates more opportunity downstream. Right? And so, yeah, it is important for us and your perspective on that to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Here's a quick one. What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word prefabrication?
Planning. I think that the planning comes in all different forms, right? Planning and getting the people in the room and doing charrette, planning in the room as getting into a model, planning into the room as, well, what is the system we're going to tackle and when? And then that starts, and I think it's actually taking a step back. It's the conversation. The conversation, it's not just a verbal conversation that we're having today. There's a conversation that's happening all the time in the virtual world and BIM. That's a conversation.
Yeah.
We've moved that conversation from being like, hey, get that ducker out of the way in the field to, hey, how do we make this faster before those guys even show up and gals show up on the job site?
Yeah.
This is a conversation that we're having at all times.
Well put. One thing you liked about the Advancing Prefab 2026 conference?
There's a lot of excitement here.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to be able to go last year to the 2025, and just the scale and the scope continues to grow, and we keep inviting more and more people, and they keep coming to participate in the conversation. That's really exciting to me. And like we were saying before, is that you don't have to be doing anything in this space right now, what we're calling prefab. But everyone, I think, if you're working in the space and doing high impact work, you are doing prefab. You're building your strut assembly on the floor and you're getting it. That's prefab.
Yes.
That is prefab.
Yeah.
So I think breaking that mold is, prefab means I have to build out a whole mod and an e-house and, build out my water treatment station and fly it in. Well, yeah, that is also prefab, but that's not the only way that prefab works. You can walk into it and grow a program, from the field.
100%.
And that's a really cool thing. And that's
Yeah.
exciting. And that's why I think this is so accessible of a space and a conference and really of a part of the industry.
Yeah. And to your point, as it's grown, it's starting to see people that you wouldn't normally see showing up, and the conversation seemed to be morphing into a more, not like you said, not just about prefab. There's so much around prefab. And so I think that's allowing us better conversations about how we can be better in that space. So I couldn't agree more with you.
Well, and you have people too, like Amy Marks, who is the queen of prefab, and she's been banging on this drum for forever, right?
Time.
And I think it went from a lot of skeptics asking to prove it to me to now,
Yes.
future partners asking, well, how can I do this? And that has been a really seismic shift. I think that I don't think of getting the credence to it, and it will, but give it a year or 2 years and we're going to have a very different conversation here. And I hope to see double the size of booth of you guys, because that signaling how much work we're trying to support and growing it through this whole space.
Yeah. And it's a really big component of that, and a critical component is like for the technology, for those folks that are steering that, or we're building these models, it's just so important for that community to understand more about the constructability aspect. Right. And so spending that time and being around partners or being around your clients, like you said, asking for help, helping to understand better only will drive this down a new avenue.
There are 7 tracks here. There are 7 different deep dives that you can do here at the conference to get you in and really a depth of understanding to go take back to your team.
Yeah, great point.
Like how do we get more people into those tracks, and how do we make 7 more tracks? Right. Because that's how deep we can go in this. Yeah. So and I don't claim to know everything. I claim to know very little actually about it, but I know enough to know that there's so much to learn, and it's incumbent on us as as industry leaders and as people running in the front to kind of hold the banner and run and have people come in behind us, because we're at that inflection point, I think. And it's are we going to drive the conversation, or is the conversation going to drive us? I think that's kind of where we're at.
True. Great point. All right. Last question. Biggest takeaway from the conference so far?
Wow, that's a great one. It's been great. I think that the takeaway for me is like I was saying before, like there's so much to learn and so much depth to be mined here. And a big takeaway is that there are people here that will help you jump in at any stage that you are at. The important thing is that you have to have a dedicated person, routine, division that's really going to focus this, because it's not a side course anymore.
Yeah.
That is a takeaway. This is not a side show or a side serving to what it is. If you don't put this front row and center with your development and your strategic plan for 26 and beyond as an organization, as a firm, you're actually not doing it a service. You're actually probably doing it a disservice, because you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
So bringing it into the front and bringing it into the focal point of your organization is going to be the differentiator. And that's probably the biggest takeaway, that it's not a side piece anymore. It's not a new business item. It gets its own section in the meeting minutes.
100%. Well, fantastic.
Hey,
Appreciate it, Stefan.
great as always. Thank you so much.
Yeah.